You guys listen to Anthrax at all?
Yeah, let's do
No?
it.
You don't know like Among the Living? You don't remember that?
Wow.
No, you were never a thrash metal
I don't like thrash metal,
guy. I mean,
but
you look like a. You know what? I bet you Stephanie is. You know?
Yeah, yeah, she
Yeah.
probably.
Hey, welcome to IoT Coffee Talk. I'm trying to be all cheered up and, but the reality is I'm knocked out. I have no coffee, and we had to go through all that election drama last night, right? So
no IoT on elections in the US.
let's not talk about it. But
But
you
I
know,
mean, is there any
hacked
technical
voting
stuff?
machines and what
Yeah,
IoT can do to save the democracy in the world.
I don't think so, but
I don't think.
I'm just curious if there is technology.
Yeah,
In Spain, there is no technology actually.
okay. Which sometimes that's better, as we
Yeah,
found.
sometimes going totally
Sometimes
analog.
paper is better.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah, the drama
these
continues.
sensors, right?
Yeah.
Eyeballs.
I've heard, I'm not going to name names, but I heard one of the Japanese car manufacturers still does everything on paper.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Even though you think everyone's super advanced and using
Oh yeah.
high-tech stuff, there's one of them that they still do everything
No,
on paper.
there's always this one dude. He's probably like 7 years old, and he's got one of those slide rules, and he calculates everything. He does the entire supply chain optimization with the slide rule and math in his head.
Yeah, yeah,
Seriously, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, they have people like that.
that's right. It's
Japanese
true.
companies, and then you try to go in there and push them a supply chain management system or ERP, and woo,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to take them out to a lot of dinners and sing a lot of karaoke to convince these guys to handle the spreadsheets, man. I
Well, you
literally
know
have to
what?
do that.
They'll be
I
laughing
literally
at
have to
us.
do that.
They'll be laughing at us pushing this digital transformation stuff when I'm thinking of the newer Blade Runner movie they did, and they talked about how they had a giant electromagnetic pulse that wiped out everything, and the only stuff that survived was what was on paper and
Yeah.
documents.
Cylons, man. Cylons. Battlestar Galactica. It was the only analog battle star. That's how it survived the Cylon attack.
Let's see. There
It's
you go.
true.
So,
It's true.
so I think
Fact.
maybe we should flip what we talk about and talk about a new analog transformation
Oh,
and
flip the
an,
script.
an
I like
analog
flip the script.
revolution. You know.
Yeah, analog.
Then
Maybe
you
that's
can start making paper and pencils at Ericsson.
It's
Why
only
not?
why not? You know, if I want to send a message to someone else in the office, I'm going to write it, turn it into a paper airplane, and throw it to them.
Or pigeons, yeah.
Yeah, pigeons.
Oh yeah.
You can't hack pigeons.
No styrofoam cups. And then, two styrofoam cups with the connected
Yeah.
string. Yeah, that's how we communicate. Yeah, we've come a long way, right? But maybe we've come too far. I don't know. That might be a good topic in the future for a
Yeah.
coffee talk because
Everything's great till the power goes out or you have an electromagnetic pulse.
yeah, exactly. Or the hack, and now everyone's freaking out about that stuff. But why don't we get started here with the proposal that Mark you made about a topic, which is IoT and education, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
I'll be honest, I have no idea what that means. So you gentlemen will have to introduce the topic and share your ideas, and then I will kick them while they're
Yeah,
on.
maybe I give my point of view
I have no
about
choice.
IoT and education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that means. And, I think there's a lot of folks who talk about IoT in education, but it just sounds like, communications, it's collaboration, this unified communications that we have. So I don't know. Sometimes I get confused. I don't see the IoT, the quote unquote IoT part of it. So maybe you guys can explain. And hey, David, how's it
Hey, good
going, man?
Hey
morning.
David, how are you?
I'm
Glad
good.
you joined. You missed the anthrax.
Oh gosh,
Anthrax fan, or are you too young for that as well?
I have no idea. I believe anthrax is it's a substance that has been sent in the mail to some unsavory folks here.
They sound like Anthrax. It was a thrash metal band in the 80s. You got to check them out. They're awesome. Amazing performers. Amazing performers. I actually watched a video a couple of weeks back, and I was just like, that's what I used to listen to when I was in high school. You know, it's like friggin' awesome stuff. Anyways,
All right,
education
Marc,
and IoT.
give us the pitch, Marc.
All right. So when I started on the IoT, I think I started with Arduino. Okay, I don't know if a lot of people has experience with Arduino, but and mostly going to IoT meetups or workshops like that in Zurich with some friends, Munich and Germany and Barcelona, and learning about the IoT and quickly seeing these Arduinos getting into schools, children, and then appearing this initiative of education like STEAM. I don't know if you know about that, but STEAM comes for science, engineering. Well, now it's with A as well, arts and mathematics.
Oh, really?
So trying to introduce the science and technology, mathematics and art into children since the beginning. And then, Arduino played a big role there, but there are other initiatives now, if you don't know how to write, so there are other toys that are connected to the internet where children can play with. And there is, it was like a couple of weeks ago, because there is a new version of the microbit.
Mm-hmm.
So the story of the microbit, this is made by the BBC. The BBC is the British public TV.
Yeah.
So actually the British public TV, 20-something years ago, 30 years ago, they sent a computer to every school in the UK for free. So all the students could use a computer. And to celebrate that, some years ago, they launched a board where children could learn about electronics. Maybe, as you said, Leonard, that's right. Maybe we are not going to talk about IoT, but we are teaching electronics, science, technology, mathematics to children to empower them to become IoT engineers in the future, or even names that we don't know or jobs that we don't know that are going to exist in the future. Because maybe in the school, so actually BBC gave one of these for free to each student in the UK. This cost about $15. And it's a really cool tool to learn to code and to start, to get into the electronics and the science and technology and mathematics. So I wanted to make an episode about IoT or electronics or STEAM, because I think that new generations are going to get educated with this type of tools, and they will come, I don't know the name of their job positions in 10, 20 years, but they will, because of the education that they will get, they will introduce new patterns into the jobs that probably we still don't know. And this is what I wanted to discuss with all of you. What do you think?
I think it's great. I think it's important. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
And there's lots of evidence that countries that have put together these programs early on see success a decade later. I think in the U.S., Rob, you're gonna keep me on check here, but in the U.S. during the post World War II, the U.S. had the highest high school enrollment in the history at that point, which resulted in gains a generation or two later. The GI Bill was part of that, this massive push for education for people here in the U.S. And look what it did to the Industrial Revolution, right? Without a doubt, the U.S. led that revolution, and things have changed. But I think that point that Marc just made of how do we encourage, how do we fund these, STEAM. I'm used to calling it STEM here, but I guess arts. Hey, look, arts and science, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, these are really important, and I think if these programs never ended and just continued, I don't know, it would be a different earth today, I guess.
Hey, wait, Mark, what does the A stand for? Does it stand for arts?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No,
Because
man.
you're right. People have been saying STEM, 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 STEM. People have been saying STEM this whole time, and the people who are into the arts and stuff felt left out.
Well, oh man, is it one of those inclusiveness thingies? Yeah, but I think art's important, and so is physical ed. So are they going to throw a P in there, a P and E in there?
I don't know.
But
I think that
I'll say no. Okay, look,
You
science.
can back out. Let me help you out before the hate mail starts to arrive.
here it comes.
How many scientists? I know. I'm going to ask. I don't know the answer to this, so I'm just going to ask you, the smarter folks. How many scientists that have made amazing discoveries and contributions to science have thought of their discovery as art? The folks working with the genome and the DNA architecture, do they see it as art? Is the visual representation of science art? Can we use art to get kids to go like, wow, that looks cool and it's art, but it's science? Just saying. Also, arts pays my marketing budget, so stop bashing art.
Here's the thing. You can get a bachelor's in science or you can get a bachelor's in art, and there's a reason why they separate the two. But anyways, no, hey, you know what? No, I think it's great because back in the day when I was going to elementary school, junior high and high school, they had shop. Right. And what was that? Home economics or whatever, where you learned how to cook. And I actually took home economics and learned how to make a cake.
That's what you majored in, right? In college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cake baking. Yes, exactly. And now I think it's absolutely important for kids to start to learn about
It is.
IoT and what's coming next. I mean, we had those skills oriented classes back in junior high, and nowadays, I mean, we're probably less prone our kids are less prone in the future to get jobs as mechanics, and because they had auto shop, right?
Yeah.
And becoming carpenters, et cetera, than they do now. But what's more important is we have to prepare these kids for the jobs of the future, and then get them into what should be, and I'm surprised we don't do this as a national policy, a continuous cycle of rejuvenate or modernizing our workforce. It seems like we stop, and we, even with our schooling systems and the curriculums that we provide our children, it's all legacy stuff, right? It's not necessarily forward thinking. Although, there are STEM programs. I mean, that's what the STEM programs are there for. The STEAM programs are there for. But, I think, every single kid needs to take a computer class, IoT class, maybe AI class, maybe 5G class, who knows, but all these things are going to be important.
I'm a big advocate that we should help children to hack, or to teach them to hack IoT devices in the school. And the second topic should be privacy and laws. So you need to know what's legal and what's not legal. Is it legal to have a camera in the middle of the street recording you, for example? Yeah. At least in Europe, it's not. So children should learn that in school. What's legal and what's not legal about their privacy, for example.
You know what? You don't need to teach a kid how to hack. They will teach you how they hack your computer so they can play Roblox or Fortnite or watch YouTube.
Well, Leonard,
they're really, really smart.
If one of these days, we get, one of the reputable publications that, that teaches, they share, who's been hacked and how. I think there should be a category of hacked by children, because that will send a message to these entities that don't take cybersecurity seriously. I think that's a great idea. Hacked by kids.
Hacked by kids. No, kids are ingenious. They're very, I mean, why do you think some of the most I don't know if nefarious is really a good word for it, but some of these kids that are hacking large corporate systems, they're kids. They're not really that old. Where did they learn how to do all this stuff? Hacking into mommy's iMac or Surface.
So I'm totally right there with Mark. Getting these devices out to kids. Whether it's IoT or not. Learning to code, learning to work with electronics. To your point, I remember having wood shop and metal shop and even architectural drafting, like in junior high. And I think back of those fondly as some of my favorite classes I ever took. Yeah. A while back, you may remember something called the Hour of Code and code.org. There's this guy, Hadi Partovi, who worked at Microsoft. And he started this code.org thing where you basically are writing code using these little blocks that you connect to each other, which came out of Blockly. It's kind of JavaScript behind the scenes. And then on a Raspberry Pi, it's called Scratch. And on an Android device, MIT has a project called App Inventor. This guy right here, though, really kicked off a lot of great stuff for kids and to try to get computer science in schools, and got a lot of major people. When he kicked off the Hour of Code, he had President Obama. He had all these people from all walks of life, sports stars, people who never imagined that were focused on writing code. And it was amazing. And so I don't, I think every December they do this Hour of Code and you go into schools and work with the kids and, and they don't realize they're writing code. They're learning just about logic, they're not having to type in text. They're making a game. They're making a person move across a screen and doing things. And so they plug in what they're doing, but they're doing
Scratch.
They're doing, Scratch, and they're doing branching logic and stuff like that. But it teaches them to think, I remember Steve Jobs always saying people should learn how to code because it teaches you how to think. Because you learn the logic of how things should work. And so that's been huge. And then as Mark said, you had the rise of Arduino. And so a bunch of us started playing around with those. Then the Raspberry Pi came out and that's been huge. And it's been, and the Raspberry Pi was created specifically for education for kids. Now it's being used for all kinds of things. I think one of the things that kind of got us thinking about this week was the Raspberry Pi Foundation launching this new Pi 400 thing, which it was all in a keyboard, where they put the whole Raspberry Pi 4, which is now really fast. I think it's quad core running at 1.8 gigahertz. It's got 4 gig of RAM. It's got all these great capabilities. I've always been big in volunteering in education, and I remember early versions, like maybe the Raspberry Pi 2. I remember going to meetings with working groups in our school district saying, in addition to, hey, this is a great way for kids to learn how to code, I was also noticing, and this is relevant to right now, what's going on with the pandemic. I was always noticing that schools never had enough money. School districts are always trying to raise money through PTA or different organizations to try to get more computers in the hands of kids. There were wealthy school districts that were giving all the kids iPads, but there were a whole lot of school districts that couldn't afford to give that to kids. And I remember distinctly years ago with the Raspberry Pi 2, setting that up with a keyboard. I was like, for not a very lot of money, and you got all these old monitors laying around from Windows 98 and XP, and you just plug it in, and it only had 1 gig of RAM, but I could bring up a browser and I could do, Google Docs, and I could do the online version of Office 365 and everything. I was like, and it's got a word processor. I go, there might be something here. And now today with this new keyboard computer, I think it's $75, and then you can obviously add a mouse and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, I think beyond using it to teach kids to code, we should be using it just to give computing to kids at all, because we need it for now more than ever. Which takes us to a whole other deal that we're all involved in with Elevate Our Kids, right? because it's all so. How often do we talk about economics drives everything?
Yeah.
And so we may want to give every kid a MacBook Pro, but guess what? We can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
And now comes along something that's going to be under $100 that reminds us all of the one laptop.
Wow, you have one laptop per child.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I've been passionate about this stuff for years. This didn't work out. We never got the price down low enough on this. If you'll remember, it was a drive to build a $100 laptop so we could get it to kids all over the world. But at the time frame, it was still too hard to get the cost down. Yeah. I think today we've arrived at the vision of one laptop per child, maybe with this keyboard. And now we can get it into, and that's how I think we can deliver computing, because now it's got enough horsepower, enough RAM that, there's schools that are doing Google Classroom, there's schools doing Office 365, and lots of stuff in between. It has this Raspbian operating system. I know it scares people to think, I got to learn some Linux thing. But if you take away that and just realize it has a Chromium-based web browser, aka Chrome, which means that if the kid just boots up the browser, it's the same as giving the kid a Chromebook, right? And so all the things that kids can do with a Chromebook, they could absolutely do with this new keyboard. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a big breakthrough for education to get computing in the hands of kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick one up. A couple of it's such a good thing to highlight. This elevator kids. To have that access. Is part of the puzzle. And as you guys, Leonard and Rob, you guys were talking about, in junior high school, going through these wood shop, metal shop, whatever. The trades never went away. But I think what we all grew, seeing like, I guess, on TV and media are like the successful white collar jobs. Rob, you and I are lucky. We live in the Pacific Northwest. It is really hard not to know someone who works in the lumber industry, in the, some NORPAC or in the aerospace. So we have a lot of these folks that, because of those trades and getting early access to these shops, have these incredible jobs now. And not only should that come back, but, I Googled this because I knew it was Toyota. There has to be this alignment of, I'm a company and I need people. Where's that pipeline right now in school? How do I, as a big corporation, tell the market, hey, if you are in middle school right now, these are things I will want you to learn, because when you exit your education, I think I'm going to be hiring for these skills. The one I just Googled, maybe the audience could come up with some more, but Toyota has a similar partnership where they go to local trade schools and they say, hey, we've got a plant over here. And if you guys study, these 4 things, you're going to have a real good shot at a job immediately after finishing school. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because that's part of the story. Educate early, right? And to Marc's point, we don't know what the job of the future is if you're a student, if you're a parent, but if you're a corporation and you're doing strategic planning, you do know what these skills are. So how do you make that announcement to the to the educational side so that you build a funnel? Anyway, that's part of the story. So access, so that we're learning, collaboration between the educational institutions and future employers. And this could change things very, very, very quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think the education system must change, because right now, so it's all about grades. It's all about the points that you get on each topic, so on each subject, and that doesn't make any sense. So, for example, I imagine that in my university grade, you could take the easiest subjects to get the highest punctuations as possible, but that doesn't mean that I'm the smartest guy on the university. Or you could take the hardest subjects that gave you less punctuation, but that means maybe you are the smartest guy, in the university at that moment. So that's very complex to say, hey, study these 4 subjects and you get immediately a work, because you are just, it's kind of getting monkeys, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. And so I will reword, instead of study these subjects, let me rephrase that to learn these skills, right? Because you're right. It's very different. This whole what's the right frame of education is very controversial. Do we have an environment where it's just about memorization and repetition?
Yeah.
And is there value to that versus no, it's about critical thinking and skill sets. So no, I take it back, and I meant have these skill sets to improve your chances of getting a job after you're done with your, university, college, what have you. Good call out.
That's good. You change your,
Yeah. Well, no. Look.
I would say I disagree with you. Huh?
Whoa.
Leonard, you need to edit this out. It cannot be publicly seen that we have agreed here. It will ruin it.
Sacrilege.
On the other hand, on the Rob's mention of 1 laptop per child, I think that was a milestone on the netbook industry. So I think that helped. So from that moment, the netbook industry popped up. So nobody was talking about like tiny laptops. At least I was not aware of that. But from that moment that appeared the 1 laptop per child, there was an industry that said, hey, yes, we also can do it. And I remember Acer and other cheap or not cheap companies releasing Linux devices, like small netbooks, very cheap. I remember that maybe I bought one for €200 that it's still working. So
I know someone. I have a pre-HP merger. I have a compact little notebook with a Cat 8 LTE modem somewhere in here. No horsepower. The thing would just boot up. But it was about $150, which I thought was incredibly affordable versus a more robust machine.
I actually used one for work. Tiny screen.
Wow.
And that was my main computer. And it was an experiment on my part. I wanted to see whether, because I didn't at the time. I didn't like lugging around these gigantic laptops, and they were really heavy, right? They were like, 7-8 pounds, and yeah, right. And back then we also had to lug around paper. And so I had this gigantic bag that I was carrying around from airport to airport, from client side to client side. So I figured, well, why don't I get rid of these massive cords and adapters and maybe use a really low profile small computer. And it sort of worked, but it was really hard on my eyes. And so I can't really imagine students using that. We definitely need to have something that has a much bigger screen and something maybe the size of the one laptop for all. Yeah, that thing right there. You put modern components into that thing, it could be a beast, right? With that.
Yeah.
No, but the display was small. It's big, but the display was not that big.
That might be an idea that yeah, exactly. Look, and you know what? It'll probably get great 5G reception with those big rabbit ears.
Well,
right? Think about
it. The thinking, that's part of the thinking with this was you may have your school in a village, and assuming you have any connectivity at all, you may only have one source of connectivity.
Yeah.
There was 2 forms of Wi-Fi. We all use one, and we never use the other one. The other one is there's ad hoc, and what's the other one? Anyway, the one that's peer-to-peer that no one ever uses. It's been around since the very beginning of Wi-Fi. The thinking was all these laptops with these big antennas would be daisy chained together with that Wi-Fi kind of peer-to-peer mesh with each other. Nothing, no weird invention. It's just part of the normal Wi-Fi spec to be able to get all the kids in a schoolroom in a village somewhere with not a lot of electricity. They had add-ons for this device, kinetic things where you could go to charge this thing by hand. A lot of thinking went into a lot of this stuff and the accessories for it. Don't assume anything, right?
Yeah.
Don't assume a lot of electricity. Don't assume great connectivity.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so what you're saying, Rob, is that I could have an edge with no power if I crank it.
there you go.
Okay.
Edge computing, yeah.
Edge computing.
With no power. That's the carry. It's no power. Just crank it up.
Just like if you've got one of those emergency radios or whatever, when the power goes out, or lanterns or lights.
Exactly.
Spin something and it creates battery power, by using your energy.
We have the bundle. We have the AM, FM. It's already set to NPR, and it has the flashlight. Mike, NPR is National Public Radio.
Yeah.
Public radio stations.
but yeah, give this to a bunch of children, and yeah, they will connect a bike to that generator. And
yeah. It's great stuff. It's great thinking. I think we talk about under times of the biggest constraints and stress is when the best ingenuity and ideas come.
Yeah.
And there's lots of talk that maybe we're living in a moment like that right now. When everything is abundant and easy and plentiful, it doesn't push you to push the envelope like you would when things are stressful. And so, I'm hoping we see a lot of great stuff come out of this difficult time that we're living through right now.
Well, that is straight up Yoda messaging right there. That was accurate and profound.
Buddha knowledge right there. Yeah, and hopefully one of those things is an appreciation for teachers. I don't think we fully appreciate the value that they bring to the teaching experience. And one of the things that they do is ensure that our kids are paying attention, And I think with this remote learning, one of the challenging things is that it's hard to monitor whether or not a kid's paying attention. I mean, they could be looking into the camera and it may look like they're paying attention, but they could be
No, look at Mark right now. This is a perfect example of what teachers are struggling with. Leonard, you're the teacher. You're delivering this key lesson, which will pay in spades. And look at this guy, just completely distracted over there.
Totally distracted, looking
on cue.
out the window and not paying attention. Exactly. And so one really cool IoT idea, and this is something that I would buy, is some kind of IoT application that can help monitor the attention of your kid while he's in remote class.
But they figured
back to what I said before. These kids are hackers.
I believe
out a way to play Roblox or watch YouTube during class.
Dude, there's a Zoom community where you can pay fellow humans to join you on a Zoom call and watch you work. And if you're being distracted, like Mark was just, they'll be like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Focus. You can pay for that. This is not IoT, but you can actually pay for that.
It's going back to what we said before, right?
Gig economy.
No. Analog revolution. Do everything old school.
Exactly. Yeah, you missed that part. But yeah, that's analog revolution. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mark, we were talking about students not paying attention to teachers as you turn your head to the left and had a side conversation. It was on cue. It was perfect.
Thank you for making it public.
Awesome.
Anytime.
Well, it's interesting right now. Teachers are using the terms, they're doing synchronous and asynchronous teaching. So you assume that most of the teachers are kind of doing like they would do in the classroom, or like if you're in a college class, it's a lecture to the kids and they're all watching on their screens. But it turns out that's not what's happening all the time. Teachers are doing some of that, but they're also doing asynchronous teaching. In other words, they're all having to become like Saul Khan from Khan Academy, and they're all making YouTube videos. I only know this because my wife's a teacher and she's living this life. And so they're making and these teachers are working longer hours than they ever have now. It's crazy. And so I certainly see my wife, she is making tons of videos for the kids to give them time offline or other times to watch and learn these lessons in addition to straight lecture that they may be getting. It's really interesting to watch this play out.
To anyone listening, and including Mrs. Tiffany, everyone should grab a moment to like literally thank one of the educators, because most of them are struggling, and they're not going to come out and tell the parents, hey, like I'm struggling, I'm having a hard time, but it is really, really tough. I mean, we like to talk about disruption, right, in IoT, but what is it like to be a teacher in 2020 if you've gone fully virtual, right? Like that. It's and like that too. It was like, it's not like they prepped last year to do this year. No, it was just like, hey, this is happening, boom. So any signs of appreciation that as a community we can send the teaching community, it is necessary, and something that we try to do here.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely,
nice.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Extra because they also have to deal with my kids, and that's another can of worms. But I say thanks because wow, they are saints.
Yeah. Well,
Man.
and I think we've talked about the divides, the various divides that we have, whether it's an educational divide in school, whether it's a digital divide, and the potential exists for those to get worse, even though we've been all working so hard to make them smaller because of what we're going through. Special needs kids with certain special plans that they have in their classes with teachers, that's not working out quite as well right now because of the online virtual, and no doubt we're all being thrown into it. And I don't want to say we're making it up as we go along, but kind of. And so there's a lot of kids who are probably suffering because they can't learn. A lot of kids can't learn that way. Maybe they really need that in person, and maybe they need smaller groups, one-on-one. It just depends. The digital divide, the haves and the have-nots. This goes back to this kind of stuff. It's exacerbated by, computing power is the only way you get taught. Internet is the only way you get to this works. We've all been talking about that. And it's almost, it feels like a race to me, like an imperative. Like we have to hurry and get these things to the kids as fast as we can, because every day, if you're a kid and you don't have, if the only way, you can't get on a bus or ride your bike to school anymore, the only way you get educated is with this thing now and internet. And every day that you don't have it, your education has stopped and you are now falling behind. You've heard all kinds of stats. I know some people just make up wild stories, but are the kids going to be a year behind? Are they going to be 2 years behind? Is it 6 months behind where they should be education-wise? I hear stories about more affluent, wealthier parents who may be taking their kids out of public schools during this time and taking them to special private schools where they have all the money to give them everything they need. And what does that do? That exacerbates a class division through a digital problem, right? Parents who are able to are like, well, I'm running out of patience with this XYZ public school district that hasn't been able to do this yet. So I'm taking Sally or Johnny to this other school so that they're staying ahead. There's all these factors that are going to cause bigger divides across different kinds of lines. And so I do feel like it's not something that we just have to do, but we have to do quickly, because every day, and I don't want this to be about my wife in education, but she's also like part of the geek squad now. She's having to do tech support because guess what? All these computers, they're having problems. They're on Zoom and Teams calls, and the kid's like, I can't hear, or my whatever's not working. And then you burn up hours doing, and it's not like there are these giant IT departments in school districts. It doesn't exist, or it's very small. There are so many compounding problems. And again, it's not just a hassle like, oh, I wasn't able to do whatever because my computer wasn't working. It was, I missed Western civilization. I missed algebra because it wasn't working. And now I'm farther behind. Me as a human projecting into the future, my success or failure in life is being impacted. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff certainly think about,
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's not only digitalization per se. No, this is something that we are talking now in other episodes. Like, is digitalization make sense? Yeah, could make sense or not, depending on X, Y, Z. But yeah, digitalizations in every area has its faults and or ups and downs. So yeah, on education, they discovered. Now, this is something that I did a lot of research on digital education, like 10 years ago. How should be the digital education? And from day to night, no, they had to do it. And and there are a lot of barriers that will not be solved, because they are even not solved on your company calls, because there is still people that tries to talk with mute or things like that. So if that happens on technological companies, imagine with children. So digitalization, it's very complex.
And and to Rob's point too, of some of these public school districts, it's not like they had a large IT team, and these public school districts that pre-COVID didn't already have a laptop per child just in case, means that they had to procure what was available at the time, which, depending on budget, guarantee you they were not shiny, new, out of the box computers, right? They had, look, it's the reality of budget. It was secondhand things. And sometimes, and we've talked about this, right? Sometimes with secondhand computers come issues that need to be addressed before they are given to a child so that this child could learn. So no, this is a massive problem. So once again, let's empathize with these teaching professionals, and let's help out, even if it's just a thank you, and and putting a little bit less stress on them. I sound so somber. I need more coffee.
Yeah, this is like a little bit. It is a very somber topic and a very serious one. But I'm running out of coffee. Actually, I never had coffee, but we're up on our time.
You gave up the coffee, or it's just for today?
It just ran out. It's bad supply chain planning.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think, no one beats Rick in not wanting IoT connected things in the house. But I wish I had an IoT connected coffee machine, because the cleaning light came on, and the instructions, which my wife pointed to, but I decided not to read, it called for vinegar and water to clean it. But I used apple cider, and the machine didn't like it. So if it had been IoT connected, it probably would have told me, dude, wrong thing. You're doing it wrong. And now, apparently,
but on your mobile phone, that probably was in the sofa. So
David,
you would have not read it.
This is all I need. Is a Zoom service. I want to hire a guy to sit there and just monitor my stock of capsules and yell at me when I'm getting low to solve my laziness problem. It's simple.
Automation,
fancy stuff. Just need to.
You know what? Automation at its finest. You saw that. Walmart pulled the robots for the shelf scanning thing. So hooray! For a win for the humans this week.
Maybe it's because they didn't work, but
There's the next episode, when things don't work.
Yeah, some good ideas just don't pan out in real life. POC. But
you know what? I realize this obviously today it's been, an interesting and maybe sometimes somber topic and everything. But I think another way to look at it is, aren't we lucky that we're all thinking of this stuff and we're already putting dots together and we're all passionate about solving the problem? And aren't we lucky that we're going to be the ones who are going to race to solve this problem, and that we're going to look back and say, look at this thing that we did, and it starts with a few people, but it'll grow. And so I think there's always a way to flip it, and I'm excited about the race to solve these problems as fast as we can. Just like, how did we get to the moon in less than a decade from the president saying we're going to the moon? It's like that. You say it, you write it down, you talk about it, you figure it out, you work the problem, and then you make history. And I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and let's not forget the other problem that we need to solve, which is probably more important, is getting our kids back into the classrooms, and that means controlling the virus. There are other countries in this world where their kids are not having to learn remotely. They're in their classrooms today, and it's because they've controlled the virus spread. So, I mean, we also need to put energy in that and not solely focus on how do we make remote learning normal, because you know what? Kids hate it. They straight up hate it. This is not the new normal. It shouldn't even be the next normal. Anyways, it's something to think about, because there's the bigger problem that we need to solve, and we really do need to get our kids back in the classrooms, but safely. That's all I gotta say about that.
All right, Forrest.
Hey guys, and thanks to all our IoT Coffee Talk listeners. Please follow us at www.iotcoffeetalk.com. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, do all that cool YouTube stuff that we want you to do. And most importantly, share your reactions. We'd love to hear what you think, and just post your comments below. And we will see you next week, right, guys?
Yeah.
See you next week. Be safe.
See you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.